who does not become a beast becomes prey. Friedrich Nietzsche. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. He was not just a painter. He was a force, a quiet fire that burned beneath the skin of civilization. Leonardo did not live to please others. He did not obey the world. He bent it. And that is precisely why his name lives while others dissolve into dust. Not because he was kind, but because he was whole, complete, and unafraid to be himself. The tragedy is that most people are not born like that. They are shaped, bent early, like branches forced into unnatural forms. They learn very fast. If you are kind, if you are good, if you smile when you want to scream, you will be accepted. And acceptance becomes the God, the only God. So, you begin to perform. You become the good girl, the polite boy, the helpful friend, the quiet partner. You become everything for everyone, and nothing for yourself. They clap, they smile, they love you, or so it seems. But deep down, something starts to rot. Something begins to die. It starts with small betrayals, saying yes when every bone inside screams no, staying when everything in your soul begs to leave, smiling when your heart is cold and heavy. You lie, not to others but to yourself, and you call it kindness. But this kindness is not noble. It is fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of being seen, the fear of being unloved. And so, goodness becomes your prison. You decorate it with compliments, with helpfulness, with generosity. But it is still a prison. Every time you hide your anger, your sadness, your confusion, you teach the world that you don't matter. You teach them that you will always be available, always smiling, always nice. And they believe you, so they come, they take, and they keep taking. Because that is what you taught them. No one will rescue you. No one will say, "Stop, you've given enough." Because the world rewards obedience and punishes rebellion. The world loves you quiet, helpful, and invisible. It loves you when you bleed and call it a gift. But there is a part of you that remembers. It lives in the dark. It does not smile. It does not please. It watches and waits. It is the part you buried when you chose to survive instead of live. It is wild. It is honest. And it is angry. This part is your shadow. And it is not evil. It is the part of you that still remembers freedom, that remembers what it means to say no, to walk away, to protect yourself. It is the roar inside the whisper, the fire behind the smile, the truth beneath the performance. Leonardo lived with his shadow, not against it. He did not amputate parts of himself to fit into a world he did not respect. He created a new one. He did not beg to be seen. He saw himself. You don't need to be Leonardo, but you must stop being good for everyone, because in the end, the one who tries to please all loses themselves. And once lost, there is no applause loud enough to fill that silence, no smile wide enough to hide that emptiness, no kindness strong enough to drown that scream. They raised you to be kind, but not the kind that comes from truth, the kind that is useful, predictable, harmless. The world does not need your soul. It needs your obedience, your compliance, your smile on demand. And so they trained you like an actor trains for a role. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Until the performance becomes the identity. You became polite in pain, generous in exhaustion, agreeable in violation. You gave your time, your attention, your life, and called it love. You convinced yourself that being needed is the same as being valued, that being praised is the same as being seen, that being used is the same as being loved. But this is the currency of the system. It runs on sacrifice, not noble sacrifice, quiet, invisible, daily self-erasure. You are not rewarded for your essence. You are rewarded for your usefulness. The moment you stop giving, the moment you say no, the moment you break the pattern, the world punishes you. They say you changed. They say you are cold, arrogant, selfish. because you dared to place yourself at the center of your own life, because you stopped apologizing for existing. Look around. The system is built on good people who stay silent, who nod when they should speak, who give when they should resist, who smile when they should burn. They keep the machine running. Their exhaustion is fuel. Their guilt is leverage. Their need to be liked is the chain around their throat. The office worker who never says no, the mother who forgets herself, the friend who always listens but is never heard, the partner who disappears in the shadow of the other. These are the quiet martyrs of the modern world, celebrated for their sacrifice, forgotten in their pain. And the system keeps them busy, always giving, always fixing, always pleasing, so there is no time to stop and feel the emptiness inside. Because if they did, they would realize that they have become ghosts, performing kindness without presence, offering care without self, living without truly being alive. True goodness cannot exist without freedom, and freedom begins when you stop performing, when you stop asking for permission to be whole, when you understand that your worth is not negotiable, not conditional, not up for discussion. Leonardo never waited for approval. He never explained his genius. He did not beg for space. He took it, not with violence, but with certainty, with presence, with truth. He did not serve the system. He transcended it. You must understand this. When you live to please, you are no longer living. You are surviving, barely. You are a mirror for others, reflecting what they want to see, not who you truly are. And mirrors break. Always. Eventually. So stop being a mirror. Be the flame. Let it burn away every false smile, every forced yes, every guilt that does not belong to you. Let it burn until all that remains is truth. Raw, untamed, alive. Because the system cannot use what it cannot control, and it cannot control what no longer needs to be liked. The problem with always being good is that it becomes a habit stronger than hunger, more stubborn than pain. You learn to betray yourself before you even know what loyalty to self means, and this betrayal is quiet. There are no screams, no blood, only silence, numbness, the kind that wraps around your chest and makes everything feel distant, dull, unimportant. Behind the performance of goodness lives a beast, not a monster, not evil, but a wild creature made of truth. This creature is the part of you that never agreed to be tamed, the part that remembers what it felt like to say no without guilt, to walk away without shame, to exist without permission. But this beast has been caged for so long, trained to smile, to obey, to wait its turn. It watches as you say yes again and again, as you let people take more than you have, as you convince yourself that your suffering is noble. And with every false yes, the beast grows more restless, more bitter, because it remembers. It remembers the first time you said yes when you meant no. It remembers the first time you let someone cross your boundaries and called it love. It remembers every time you swallowed your voice to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to protect others from your truth. The body does not forget betrayal. It stores it. In the shoulders that never relax. In the jaw that stays clenched. In the stomach that knots for no reason. In the sleepless nights and the heavy mornings. The body becomes a graveyard of unspoken pain. And eventually, the kindness becomes venom. You begin to resent the people you once loved. You feel angry when they ask for help. Not because they are wrong, but because you have nothing left to give. You feel bitter when they praise you, because their praise feels like a collar. You feel exhausted not by life, but by the weight of the mask you wear. And then, one day, the mask cracks. Maybe you scream at someone for something small. Maybe you walk away from everything without warning. Maybe you fall into silence so deep that no one can reach you. It feels like a breakdown, but it is not. It is a rupture, a rebellion, a return. The shadow does not destroy you. It tries to save you. It forces you to face everything you've buried under the performance, the rage, the grief, The boundaries never drawn, the truth never spoken, the life never lived. It is terrifying, because the world does not like when you change, especially when your change means you are no longer useful to them. They call you cold, distant, unreasonable. But what they really mean is, you are no longer easy to control. And this is where power begins. Not the kind that dominates, not the kind that screams, but the kind that says, enough. The kind that walks away without apology, the kind that chooses self without explanation, the kind that knows peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of boundaries. You were not born to be a servant to everyone else's comfort. You were not born to smile through pain, to say yes through tears, to carry what is not yours. You were born with a spine, with fire, with the right to take up space. Leonardo understood this. He did not compromise his vision to be accepted. He did not silence his truth to avoid discomfort. His work was not polite. It was wild, sharp, alive. Because he allowed the shadow to speak, to move, to breathe. You must do the same. Not by becoming cruel, but by becoming real. Real enough to say no. Real enough to disappoint others, to stay true to yourself. Real enough to be misunderstood, unloved, rejected, and still remain whole. Because if your goodness is killing you, it is not good. Because if your kindness is draining your soul, it is not kindness. Because if your love erases who you are, it is not love. There is a point where silence becomes betrayal, where smiles become chains, where softness becomes self-destruction. You do not owe anyone your destruction. You do not owe anyone your silence. You do not owe anyone your life. You owe yourself truth, even if it burns, especially if it burns. Let it burn away every role you were forced to play. Let it burn until the only thing left is you. And when they ask where the nice version of you went, smile. Not the old smile, not the trained one, but the smile of someone who is finally free. The transformation begins quietly, not with a scream, but with a whisper, a soft voice inside that says, no more. At first you ignore it. You return to the same habits, the same performances. You say yes with the same tired smile. You suppress the storm that grows inside you, but the whisper does not stop. It grows louder. It becomes a pulse beneath your skin, a pressure in your chest, a knowing that refuses to die. You are not who you pretend to be. You never were. And when this truth becomes unbearable, the walls begin to crack. You feel it in your body, a heaviness that no rest can heal. You feel it in your thoughts, a noise that no silence can calm. You feel it in your soul, a scream with no sound. You try to hold it together. You try to be the person they need you to be, but the more you try, the more you break. This is the death of the false self. It is painful. It is disorienting. It is necessary. Because before you can be reborn, you must die. Not your body, but your mask. The mask of the pleaser, the mask of the helper, the mask of the good one. You wore it for so long that it fused with your skin. Now it must be peeled off, layer by layer, and beneath it, something raw begins to emerge, something untamed, something that no longer begs for love. This is not a breakdown. It is a breakthrough. The shadow steps forward now, not to destroy you, but to complete you. It is not the enemy. It is the guardian of your truth, the keeper of everything you hid to survive. It holds your anger, your hunger, your desire, your power. It is the part of you that does not care about being liked. It only cares about being real. You were taught to fear this part, to suppress it, to call it bad, dangerous, unacceptable. But it is none of those things. It is honest. And honesty threatens the system, because the system thrives on lies. on masks, on obedience. When you reclaim your shadow, you reclaim your power. This power is not domination. It is not loud. It does not need to prove itself. It is quiet, still, unshakable. It is the ability to say no without guilt, to walk away without apology, to take up space without permission. It is the power of boundaries, the power of clarity, the power of self. Most people never reach this place. They spend their lives pleasing others, waiting to be chosen, waiting to be seen. They live as ghosts, haunted by the lives they never lived. But some, a few, choose the path of fire. They let everything false burn away. They step into the unknown. They become dangerous, not to others, but to the illusion that once trapped them. This is what Leonardo embodied. He did not delude himself to fit in. He expanded. He exploded through every box the world tried to place him in. His genius was not a gift. It was a rebellion, a refusal to obey the limitations of the time. He did not ask for approval. He did not explain. He created. He chose truth over comfort, depth over popularity, soul over survival. And this is what you must do. Let the fire consume every version of you that was built for survival. Let it destroy the nice one, the polite one, the one who nods and smiles while dying inside. Let the flames take everything that was never yours to carry. Then from the ashes, something ancient will rise, something that was always there, waiting. The part of you that remembers, the part that does not flinch, the part that does not need to be liked to be powerful. This is not about becoming hard or cruel. It is about becoming whole, a human being who can be kind without being a slave, who can be soft without being exploited, who can love without losing themselves. True kindness is born from strength, not fear, not guilt, not obligation. When you are whole, you choose when to give, you choose when to help, you choose when to care, and when not to. Your love becomes a gift, not a transaction. Your presence becomes a force, not a tool. People will feel it. They will not know what changed, but they will sense it. They will sense that you are no longer afraid, that you are no longer waiting for their validation, that you have returned to yourself. Some will leave. Let them. They were never truly with you. Others will be uncomfortable. Let them be. You are not responsible for their fear. You are only responsible for your truth. And the ones who stay, they will see you, really see you. Not the mask, not the performance. You. Raw, wild, free. This is the power of the integrated self. The self that no longer chooses between goodness and strength. The self that is both light and shadow, soft and fierce, gentle and wild. You no longer need to hide. You no longer need to explain. You no longer need to perform. You are not here to be good. You are here to be whole. And in that wholeness, you will find something greater than approval, something deeper than acceptance. You will find peace, the kind of peace that cannot be taken, cannot be faked, cannot be broken. The kind of peace that comes when you finally stop betraying yourself. There is a silence that follows awakening. Not the silence of avoidance or submission, but the silence of power. The kind that no longer needs to explain itself. The kind that watches more than it speaks. It is the silence of someone who has returned to themselves, fully, finally. You no longer walk with the same posture. You no longer rush to fill the empty spaces in conversations. You no longer bend your truth to keep others comfortable. You speak less, but your words land like thunder. You smile less, but your presence glows with something ancient, something untouchable. People notice. They feel it before they understand it. Some lean in, curious. Others step back, afraid. Because the version of you that they knew, the one that agreed too easily, gave too quickly, apologized too often, is gone. And in its place stands something they cannot control, something they cannot define. You are not aggressive. You are not angry. You are clear. Clarity is uncomfortable for those who benefit from your confusion. When you know who you are, what you want, what you will and will not tolerate, you become unmanageable, unpredictable. You no longer fit the role they wrote for you. You tear the script. You burn the costume. You walk off the stage. This is when you are truly dangerous, not because you harm others, but because you are no longer willing to harm yourself for others. You say no without explanation. You say yes without guilt. You walk away without fear, and you stay only when it is true. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop proving your worth. You stop negotiating with people who only understand power when it is taken from them. The world is not used to this kind of person. The world is used to actors. People who wear the face they think others want to see, who trade their truth for acceptance, who shrink themselves to fit in. But you no longer fit, and that is your liberation. You become unshakable, not because you never fall, but because you no longer break when you do. You fall and rise, without shame, without apology, without asking for permission to heal. And in this state, you no longer seek to be understood. You seek to be true. You no longer seek to be liked. You seek to be aligned. You no longer seek peace from the outside. You carry it within. This peace is not quiet. It is not soft. It is not passive. It is a weapon, a shield, a light that blinds those who try to manipulate you, a presence that makes it impossible to lie to yourself ever again. You do not chase love. You become love, fierce, whole, demanding, and you no longer fear solitude, because your own company is no longer a cage, it is a sanctuary. There is a strength that comes from walking alone, not forever, but long enough to remember who you are without the noise, long enough to unlearn the roles, long enough to stop needing the applause. That strength becomes your root, your anchor, your spine. People will call you different. They will say you've changed, that you've lost your warmth. But the truth is, you finally stopped burning for others. You finally stopped lighting yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Now, your warmth is yours. Now, your fire is sacred. You give when it feels right, not when it is expected. You help when your soul says yes, not when guilt demands it. You love with intention, not with desperation. And when someone tries to pull you back into the performance, you simply smile and walk away. Not to hurt them, but to honor yourself. Because now, you understand, being good is not the goal, being whole is. And sometimes, to be whole, you must be fierce. You must be unkind in the eyes of those who only know how to love versions of you that abandon yourself. You must be a storm when peace becomes a cage. This does not make you wrong. It makes you free. Leonardo lived this way. He followed no rules but his own. He let no one define his worth. He was not just a man. He was a mirror to the world's limitations. And he shattered that mirror with every stroke of his brush, every line of his notes, every breath of his rebellion. You do not need to be a genius to live with that level of truth. You only need courage. The courage to stand in your fire, to own your darkness, to choose yourself, again and again, even when it is hard, even when it is lonely, especially when it is lonely. Because choosing yourself is not selfish, it is sacred. And in doing so, you show others what is possible. You become a living permission slip, a reminder that it is possible to be kind and powerful, soft and sharp, loving and firm, that it is possible to live without masks, without guilt, without fear. You become an invitation to truth. And those who are ready, they will rise with you. They will feel your fire and remember their own. They will see your boundaries and remember their dignity. They will hear your silence and remember their peace. You are no longer here to be palatable, to be polite, to be perfect. You are here to be real. And that realness will offend some. It will awaken others. But most importantly, it will set you free. There comes a point when you no longer need the world to reflect your worth. You walk through the noise without absorbing it. You hear the judgments, the opinions, the subtle disapproval, and it no longer sticks. It brushes against your skin and falls away. Because now you know the difference between being seen and being recognized. You do not crave the spotlight. You crave alignment. And alignment is quiet. It does not seek applause. It does not negotiate. It simply is. In this place, something deep shifts inside you. Your body relaxes. Your voice lowers. Your eyes become clear. You do not hurry. You do not explain. You move like someone who has nothing to prove. This is the moment when you realize all that effort to be liked was never about them. It was about fear. The fear of being alone. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of being abandoned. But when you no longer abandon yourself, those fears lose their grip. They dissolve like mist in the morning sun. You begin to understand your own rhythms. You no longer force energy where there is none. You no longer fake joy to make others comfortable. You no longer dim your depth to meet the shallow. You simply exist, fully, naturally, without armor. And that natural presence becomes your authority. You do not command respect with your voice. You embody it in your silence. You do not argue. You do not persuade. You do not beg. You live your truth, and those who are ready will feel it. And those who are not will fall away. There is no bitterness in their leaving, only space, only clarity, only the gentle recognition that not everything is meant to stay, and not everyone is meant to walk beside you. You begin to see that love is not about attachment, it is about resonance. About two whole beings choosing to share space without losing themselves in the process. There is no longer need. There is presence. There is no longer clinging. There is holding lightly. Your relationships shift. Your work shifts. Even your thoughts shift. Everything that once felt heavy begins to lift, not because life gets easier, but because you stop carrying what was never yours. And in that lightness, you become a mirror. A living example of what it means to be free inside. To be deeply rooted in yourself while remaining open to the world. You are no longer reactive. You are responsive. You are no longer consumed by noise. You are attuned to signal. And the signal always points inward. It is the compass that never lies. The quiet pull of your own truth. The wisdom in your breath. The knowing in your gut. The softness in your strength. You trust yourself now, not because you have all the answers, but because you finally stopped betraying your inner voice. And in that trust, you find peace, not the kind that is given, not the kind that is borrowed, the kind that is built, slowly, honestly, from the inside out. You are not here to impress. You are not here to entertain. You are not here to perform goodness for the approval of strangers. You are here to remember who you are. And once you do, the world can never own you again. There is a kind of death that brings life. Not the end of breath, but the end of pretending. The end of performing goodness. The end of carrying what was never yours. The end of being the version of yourself that the world found easiest to love. This is the death that matters, because once it happens, once the false layers fall away, something ancient wakes up inside you, not something new, something forgotten, something wild, and that something does not ask to be understood. It does not seek to be defined. It simply is. It breathes when you breathe. It walks when you walk. It speaks only when it must, and when it does, its voice cannot be ignored. This is your essence. Not shaped by fear, not controlled by guilt, not wrapped in performance, free, rooted, whole. You do not owe the world your suffering. You do not owe it your silence. You do not owe it your endless availability, your forced kindness, your broken pieces dressed up as strength. You owe it your truth, and your truth may not be gentle. It may come with sharp edges, with firm boundaries, with eyes that no longer look down to avoid confrontation. It may come with the sound of doors closing, of relationships ending, of people walking away because you no longer bend. But you do not bend, not anymore, because you know what it costs. You remember what it felt like to bend so far, you forgot your own shape, to give so much you lost the sound of your own voice, to wear the smile so tightly that your soul suffocated beneath it. Never again. Now you walk differently, not faster, not louder, just differently, with weight, with clarity, with direction. You are no longer pulled in every direction by other people's needs. You no longer jump at every call. You no longer apologize for the space you take up. You own that space now, and in owning it, you give others permission to do the same, not through words, through presence, through being, through the simple, radical act of not abandoning yourself. No matter what, there is a moment in the journey when the light breaks through, when the storm inside you settles. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. You are no longer a passenger. You are the force, the direction, the center. You begin to move with a quiet knowing. You do not need to shout. You do not need to explain. You do not need to defend. You know who you are. You know what you carry. You know what you will no longer carry. And so, when people try to pull you back, into guilt, into performance, into pleasing, you simply do not move. You stay. You stay in your truth, even when it is uncomfortable. Especially when it is uncomfortable. You choose integrity over approval, peace over politeness, soul over safety. And the world begins to adjust. Slowly, painfully, inevitably, it adjusts to your presence. The ones who cannot meet you there, they fall away. Let them. The ones who rise with you, they were always meant to. You no longer seek quantity in your connections. You seek resonance, depth, realness. You no longer perform love. You become love. Not the kind that sacrifices self. Not the kind that burns itself out to keep others warm. The kind that flows from wholeness. That gives without depletion. That stands without shaking. And you will still be kind, but not in the way you were taught. Not with a smile that hides pain. Not with a yes that kills your voice. Not with a softness that invites violation. Your kindness will be rooted in strength. It will say no when needed. It will walk away when necessary. It will love without losing self. That is what true kindness is. Anything else is survival. You have left survival behind. Now, you live. Fully, fiercely, freely. There will be moments of doubt. Moments when the old patterns whisper to you. Moments when you wonder if you're being too much, too distant, too hard. You are not. You are being true, and truth is never too much. It is simply unfamiliar to a world built on compromise. But you are not here to be familiar. You are here to be free. So let them say what they will. Let them judge, misunderstand, project. It does not touch you anymore, because you have built something stronger than approval. You have built yourself. And in the quiet of that becoming, you discover the greatest freedom. You no longer need to be good to everyone. You only need to be true to yourself. And that truth, that fierce, wild, untamed truth, is what the world has been waiting for. Not another performer, but a human being, alive. There is nothing left to prove, no more masks to wear, no more roles to play, No more games to win. You are not a performance anymore. You are presence. You are not an idea of who you should be. You are what remains when all the noise fades. And what remains is powerful. Not in the way the world measures power, not in domination, not in noise, but in depth, in silence, in rootedness, in the unshakable knowing of your own soul. This power cannot be taken. It does not need permission. It does not ask. It simply is. It moves through you like breath. It fills the space you stand in. It protects without needing armor. It leads without needing to convince. Now when you say yes, it is sacred. And when you say no, it is final. There is no longer guilt in your boundaries. There is no longer fear in your truth. There is only clarity. You walk through the world, not above it, not beneath it, but through it, as yourself, fully, unapologetically. And this self, this quiet, fierce, living self, is no longer for sale. You are not here to be everything for everyone. You are not here to be endlessly available. You are not here to be pleasing. You are here to be real. And the real you, the one you buried beneath politeness and performance, that you is finally home. You see the world differently now, not as a place to survive, but as a space to move freely in, to create, to love, to rest, to protect what matters. You no longer tolerate what drains you. You no longer entertain what insults your depth. You no longer betray yourself to belong. Because you belong to yourself now. And that belonging changes everything. It changes how you love, with honesty, with fire, with integrity. It changes how you speak, with calm, with certainty, with presence. It changes how you live, not rushed, not reactive, not desperate, but slow, focused, true. The old version of you was built to be accepted. This version is built to be free. And freedom does not seek comfort. It seeks truth. Freedom is not always soft. It is sometimes sharp. But in that sharpness, there is peace. Because nothing cuts deeper than the pain of being false. And nothing heals deeper than the relief of being real. So when you look back, not with regret, but with reverence, for the one who survived, who endured, who smiled through fire, you do not judge them. You thank them, because they carried you to this point. And now, you carry yourself. No more apologies. No more pretending. No more shrinking. You are not here to be nice. You are here to be free. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.